I think the grocery stores, many of them are providing a tremendous service in these times, working hard to provide the groceries and the products that people in their area need.
Even during normal times, residents in rural communities across Kansas often struggle to find a reliable and safe source of food nearby. The outbreak of the novel coronavirus, which causes the disease COVID-19, has made that struggle even greater. The director of the Center for Engagement and Community Development at Kansas State University, David Procter, has studied the importance of grocery stores to rural communities. He says the grocery store in those communities is often a barometer of the economy in small towns. In response to the current coronavirus crisis, Procter says that many small-town grocery stores are adjusting their operations. On today's Sound Living, the importance of rural grocery stores during a pandemic. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. Procter recently spoke about the impact of COVID-19 on rural grocery stores across Kansas with Jason Hackett and Randall Kowalik on the K-State podcast, The Extension Files, produced by K-State Research and Extension. He says that the COVID-19 crisis is different than other crisis events, such as a natural disaster, because it's a crisis that's unknown.
I think it's unclear for folks as to how long this may last. I think it's also a little unclear for folks, especially in some of the rural areas, as to how serious this is. In rural communities, they hear and see on the news certainly about how the virus is attacking large cities across the United States. They see it creeping maybe toward their particular area of the state in Kansas, and they hear about the dangers of it all, but it may seem somewhat distant to them. So, on the one side, they're being told to stay apart from one another, not gather, be careful about where you go and who you connect with. And at the same time, it seems like maybe, it hasn't reached them yet. And so I think there's a deal of uncertainty here where people are wanting to be safe, wanting to do the right thing, but at the same time, what they see around them maybe is not telling them that this is serious, like you might see with a natural disaster, with fires or tornadoes. And so part of it, I think, is just the unknown.
How about grocery stores? I know you're involved in the Rural Grocery Initiative. We already had a situation in large parts of the state where we had what are called food deserts. What is the situation with regard to the supply chain and being able to ensure that people are able to still get what they need in places where they've got to drive a long way just to get to the store?
There are, as you mentioned, several pockets around the state of Kansas where access to food in a grocery situation is tough. And what we are hearing, there are other grocery stores that have ramped up delivery operations, have ramped up curbside pickup operations. I wouldn't say that they're thriving, but they are providing a tremendous service to the residents of that community and to people in surrounding areas. We've even seen some communities where grocery stores are not only providing curbside pickup and delivery services, but they are spearheading food giveaways. There are these things called blessing boxes where people provide food. So it's not only the grocery store, but grocery stores often organize them. But residents can provide extra food, extra products that people need, and people can come and pick those up for free. In fact, another thing that we are hearing is that there are some people, say, in a town like Manhattan, where they're nervous about big crowds in grocery stores, and people are actually driving to small town grocery stores because they feel like there's, less chance of exposure to the COVID virus. So I think the grocery stores, many of them are providing a tremendous service in these times, working hard to provide the groceries and the products that people in their area need.
Is there anything that people should be doing to help support their local grocery stores, especially to help keep them going? Are there any steps that people can take in that regard?
Well, one thing that we hear is that, and we hear this from food distributors, but we also hear this from, on the national news too, but from our resources, from the people that we know who are food wholesalers, is that the food supply is fine, that there is enough product out there. It is just sort of the patterns of buying have significantly changed. People are nervous about things, and so they buy larger quantities than, certainly than they normally have. In fact, there are some grocery stores that are starting to put limits on certain products that have been overbought. So I would say one thing that residents could do would be to, not overbuy, not panic buy. Another thing that they could do is, I know that, historically, my family, probably lots of families, were cooking something for dinner. We don't have, we don't have some sort of spice. We hop in the car and we go and we buy, 1, 2, 3 items. And I think that it's important for people to limit the number of times that they go to a grocery store, just again to sort of reduce this exposure that they have from other people and that maybe that they are giving to other people. I would also say for, any listeners that are listening to this podcast that are associated with grocery stores, that are owners, managers, employees of grocery stores, you could look at our webpage, which is www.ruralgrocery.org. And we have a resource page at the very top of that site where we list guidance from the CDC, guidance from the FDA, guidance from the National Grocers Association that talks about how to keep grocery employees safe, how to keep your customers safe during these COVID times. So I would encourage folks to take a look at that as well.
Can't help but wonder what the impact of all this is going to be on other aspects of rural economies.
So you have a couple of things happening. I think, number one, I'm sure that there are lots of small businesses in rural communities that are very concerned about their future because who knows when the economy might open back up. Additionally, however, research that we have done has indicated that the grocery store in rural communities is often a barometer of the economy of that small town. So as the grocery store goes, so goes the local economy. So if you have small town grocery stores that at this point in time are either seriously struggling or are closed, I think it has to have a ripple effect, a ripple economic effect on other small businesses in that community. So you really sort of have a double whammy. You have the stay-at-home, only essential businesses being opened order, and then you also have the grocery store that, very likely is struggling at this time, and that also is going to impact other businesses there in town. Absolutely, I think that the rural economies are under serious stress.
So looking forward to hopefully when things level out and things can open back up again, what do you foresee being steps that rural communities especially can take to start to try to rebound as quickly and as well as possible?
I hope this gets at your question a little bit, but one of the things I think that could come from this is that, as I mentioned earlier, there are some rural grocery stores that have ramped up their delivery and their curbside pickups. Another thing that they're doing, that some of them are doing that they've not done before, is that they are trying to put together this online ordering that large city grocery stores already have. So I think one good thing that could come from this is that, as you said, as we come out the other side of all of this, is that you have a grocery store infrastructure that is going to be more conducive to folks that maybe cannot physically get to the store. So elderly people or people with low income that maybe don't have reliable transportation. I think that there's going to be more options for people to access groceries in a variety of ways than maybe they had before all of this. So I think that that could be one benefit that comes out of all of this for grocery stores in rural parts of the state.
Taking a look at the bigger picture, now that suddenly internet connectivity is more important than it's ever been before, could this be the thing that finally closes up some of the digital divide that we've heard so much about? especially as it pertains to rural communities?
You would really hope so. I totally agree with your hope, your analysis that this is the time when we are realizing across the country, but certainly in rural parts of the country where internet service is spotty, just how important it is to have this service available. I mean, I would definitely hope that something could come out of this that would improve broadband access. I think another possible thing that could come out of this is historically we have been such a mobile society that it's nothing for people to hop in their car, drive 15, 20, 30 miles to go, pick up groceries. But now all of a sudden they're nervous about that. They're nervous about going to another county where they don't know what the exposure rate is. I think that folks are probably increasingly recognizing the importance of having some kind of food access in their community. And so I would also not be surprised once all of this situation has improved, there's an increasing push among some rural communities to have local access to groceries, to healthy food.
That maybe it's not such a bad thing to pay 50 cents more for the gallon of milk at the local grocery store to ensure that that local grocery store is with us in a time of crisis.
Exactly, because you feel more confident about the people in your community. You have a sense of, while we still don't know totally, but probably have a greater sense of security in your local town than you do if you drive to another county, a larger city where there could be, more exposure to this pandemic.
You mentioned some grocery stores starting to explore and get going with online grocery shopping. With the Rural Grocery Initiative, do you help with guiding stores that haven't been using that kind of technology, helping connect them and getting them set up to be able to do that? Are you able to point them to resources for that? Or
Yes. So we actually can point them to what are called POS systems, point of sale systems, that can help with upgrading their infrastructure that they use that could become part of an online sales process. Not only that, but one of the initiatives that we are part of is called the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative. That is a partnership between our center, Kansas Health Foundation, Network Kansas, and another funder out of Missouri. And there are some funds available that can be used to purchase those kinds of digital systems, those POS systems. So those are a couple of ways that we can assist grocery stores as they try and ramp up their POS systems and their digital systems.
Again, our guest today has been Dr. David Procter, a professor in the Department of Communication Studies at Kansas State University. He's the director of the Center for Engagement and Community Development. And he's worked on a number of issues, including school consolidation, community strategic planning, heritage museum education, facilitation of community dialogue, and strategies for repopulating rural communities. And again, if you want to access some of the information that he has at ruralgrocery.org, we encourage you to take a look at that, as well as the website for the Center for Engagement and Community Development.
That's Jason Hackett. Jason and Randall Kowalik co-host the K-State podcast, The Extension Files, produced by K-State Research and Extension. They spoke with David Procter, director of the Center for Engagement and Community Development at Kansas State University, about the impact of COVID-19 on rural grocery stores across Kansas. The Center for Engagement and Community Development is part of the Rural Grocery Initiative and is a resource for all grocery store owners in Kansas. The center provides funding as well as technical and informational assistance through the Kansas Healthy Food Initiative. This assistance is primarily for improving access to healthy food and can include such things as upgrading a store's online sales system. A new Facebook page for grocery store owners has also been developed by the center. The group allows owners to ask specific questions of not just those at K-State, but also other store owners. Procter says they want grocery store owners to know that Kansas State University stands ready to assist them, either through informational resources or financial assistance. The full Extension Files podcast with Procter is available at ksre.ksu.edu/news. Click on Radio Network, then Other Programs, and then the Extension Files. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.